So yes, just going to give you a brief welcome introduction to the network and also the wider research area, the consortia of EPSRC projects that we're affiliated with. Then we'll be handing over to our project leads to present their new feasibility studies. We're then going to introduce you to our next opportunity for funding, and then, as I said, we'll have time for Q&A at the end. So we've only got an hour, we've got lots to cover. So we'll get straight on. So welcome to the DICE network. So this is a collaboration that is funded by the EPSRC. It's a 3-year network. We are now at the end, we've finished the first year, so we've got 2 years left. The total funding was £2.5 million, and we have a number of industry and policy partners that we're engaged with, as well as running this network in collaboration with 9 universities who you can see there on the screen. So this is very much a collaborative, interdisciplinary network, bringing together different communities across the areas of circular economy, materials science, and digital technology, or ICT. And fundamentally, the network is addressing 2 key challenge areas. Obviously, this area is very broad, and so we use these 2 challenge areas to define what we're going to be doing. So first of all, embed. So this is how can we embed sustainability and circularity principles within the design and development of new digital and communication technologies. So I always use the example of renewable energy technologies, wind turbines and solar panels, for example, just because their application area is sustainable in terms of providing us with renewable energy. Actually, what we're finding is very little thought is given to the way in which these new technologies are designed, the vast amount of critical minerals and materials that they're using. So it's kind of it's very important that we think about how we embed circularity within the design of these new types of technologies. So that's the embed challenge. And then the enable challenge looks at how we can realize the potential of the digital revolution to enable a circular economy across different sectors. So this is how can we use advances in digital technologies, such as a digital product passport, for example, to enable us to retain the maximum value from our products and our assets across their lifetime. And as I said, within this challenge, we're looking at a whole host of different sectors because digital is applicable to so many. So on the next slide, this is just to demonstrate that we are a network of networks. We weren't starting this network from scratch a year ago. We were very aware that there was already a lot of activity taking place in each of these key areas, these key communities. And so one of the purposes of the DICE network is really to make sure we're bringing all of these communities together and that we're building on existing work. We're not starting from scratch, we're learning and we're transferring that knowledge. And on the next slide, this is our theory of change. So this really demonstrates kind of the outcomes and the impact that we really want to achieve through the network. I think any of you who have been involved in networks in the past, there's lots of different activity. It's great fun being part of a network. There's lots of opportunities for collaboration and knowledge exchange, but sometimes it's really difficult to actually track the impact that you're having and to focus on the change that you really want to bring about. So this theory of change really helps us to focus on the types of impact that we want to be having. So for example, how can we increase the uptake of digitally enabled circular economy solutions? How can we use digital technology to ensure that products are kept in use at their highest value for as long as possible? How can it lead to a significant reduction in environmental impact? And also, how can we influence and prioritise policy and industrial strategy to enable digital innovation and circular economy implementation within businesses of all different scales and across all different sectors? So we have designed the network under 4 key pillars of activity. First of all, we have insight and evidence. So this draws upon our network of networks model to develop a better understanding of existing activities, existing knowledge, challenges, and opportunities to inform a 10-year vision and actionable roadmap towards a digitally enabled circular economy. So this is really about bringing together that insight and evidence. Secondly, this pillar focuses on capacity building and knowledge exchange, so developing an evidence-led knowledge base to inform, educate, and upskill different members of the community to increase people's understanding of circular economy and how digital technology can be a key enabler of that, and to facilitate knowledge exchange across these different community groups. The third pillar looks at research, impact, and legacy. So this is where we're facilitating mechanisms of interdisciplinary cross-value chain collaboration. This is where our flexible funding sits, which you'll hear a little bit more about, to support feasibility studies and also demonstrator projects and knowledge exchange placements. And then this is all underpinned by our fourth pillar, which is inclusive community. So making sure that all of our objectives, our activities are built on an inclusive community to enable and empower collaboration amongst diverse user groups. So we're really trying to engage those user groups and parts of the community that don't normally get involved in this type of research. So this, I just wanted to touch on the fact that when EPSRC funded this network, it was part of a much larger programme that looked at bringing together digital technology and the circular economy. And so they funded the DICE network, and they also funded 9 specific research programmes, each looking at circular economy and digital technology, but within a different context. So this is the list here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but as you can see, they touch on a really wide variety of different technologies and also look at different industry sector engagements. And actually at Exeter, we're also leading one of these on healthcare and how we can enable the adoption of circular medical technology. Great. So this brings me on to our feasibility studies. So we launched a call last year for feasibility study funding. We received 41 applications, which we were delighted with, from a whole host of different parts of the community. It was a really, really tough decision to shortlist those to just 9. And then we had a panel pitch day, which was attended by members of our network and also our industry representatives who interviewed all 9 of those groups, and then we ended up funding 3, which you will hear from today. And then we also funded 2 knowledge exchange placements. We've just been through another round, and we're going to be announcing shortly that we have some other knowledge exchange placements that we've funded as well. And as I said at the beginning, we will shortly be announcing another round of funding for our feasibility studies and demonstrator projects. So stay tuned for that. So that brings us on to the project presentations themselves, which you're all here to hear about. So I think I'm going to hand over to the first one, which is from Sonic and Rachel.
Thank you, Fiona. I don't know if you have our slides, so you should share the screen. Thanks, great. Thanks, Kate. Yeah, just to present myself shortly first, I'm associate professor here at Nottingham Business School, and that's part of Nottingham Trent University. I'm working currently in what we call Centre for Business and Industry Transformation, where we have what's called both an AI focus, but also on sustainability here in the terms of circular economy. Maybe Rachel, you also want to present yourself before we move on in the presentation?
Thanks, Sonic. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I work for London, which is a statutory body formed as a partnership between the Mayor of London and London's 33 local authorities. And we have a fairly narrow statutory remit focusing on reducing waste in London and accelerating the city's transition to a more circular economy. And I lead our food work at London.
Yeah, thanks. I will continue. So can I have the first slide again? So our project is called Surplus Map: Feasibility of a City-Scale Agentic AI Digital Twin to enable surplus food redistribution in London. This very much coins what we're looking into here: redistribution of the losses of food. Next slide. That occurs every year in London. So that is 410,000 tons of edible food that is lost with a financial value of 1.3 billion. If we can enable more, you could say, redistribution of food of this, because the demand is there, then of course all else equal, we will capture more of this financial value, and we will also tap into at least using the already embodied emissions at a higher stage in the waste hierarchy. Our ambition is to create the surplus food map, which would be a platform structure that can match supply and demand. Because right now there's no shared infrastructure. There are people working here and there everywhere, but it's very fragmented and dispersed, and there's nothing connecting and having a connected ecosystem. So we want, through this feasibility study, to provide a foundation for developing this agentic AI. What will it take technically, but also importantly, how to engage and embed human in the loop. Again, it's human who makes things work, and then we can use the power tools of, for example, agentic AI to enable food surplus redistribution. And I think importantly to also emphasize here is that right now, most food waste, or that what is being lost, will go into either anaerobic digesters, animal feed, incineration, or landfill. These are regulated by law in the lower parts of the food waste hierarchy, whereas we want our focus is enabling to move up to the second highest part of or second highest level of the food waste hierarchy, which is redistribution, but that's only on voluntary basis for all that is handling food. The highest would be prevent food waste. Of course, we want that, but if not, then can we redistribute what's already being produced? Next slide, please. To do this feasibility study, we have developed suggested three phase for this project, which is the first one would be collecting data through workshops. I think Rachel might talk a little bit more about that. We will establish ecosystem barrier drivers here. We'll also look into the technical parts. That one is captured quite much by other industries. We will map out system stakeholders, and then in the second phase, we will analyze this data. And in the third phase, we will again host a workshop to validate data, so we make sure that the findings from the first two phases is actually recognized by stakeholders that would be operating in the system, that can then take it into a demonstrator and hopefully one day become a real live project that is operationalized, and through a business model that can also drive it into higher levels. Please, Rachel.
Well, next slide, please. Thanks, Sonic. I'm going to quickly touch here on some of the outcomes that we hope to see from this work, and some of the engagement that we're doing across the system as well. So, as Sonic has said, there are multiple actors working to facilitate food surplus recovery in London. And a key objective of this project is engaging those stakeholders across the system, whether that's stakeholders that are supplying surplus food into the system, so retailers and hospitality businesses, whether that's redistributors, so charitable organisations or commercial operators, whether that's new market actors such as SME valorisers, or city level actors, so for example local authorities that potentially want a demanding access to surplus food to feed into schools, for example. So we're going to be doing a lot of work engaging those stakeholders through a series of workshops and also semi-structured interviews as well. And a key outcome that we anticipate to see, and we'd like to see as a result of this work, is those stakeholders understanding how a digital platform such as the one that Sonic has described could benefit them. Also bringing those stakeholders into the journey, building trust and bringing them onto the journey as potential collaborators. And linked to that, as Sonic has said, we hope that the outputs of the feasibility study will be actionable for a potential future demonstrator and could also potentially be used as a blueprint, a reusable blueprint in other sectors and cities across the UK and beyond. And finally, a key outcome that we really hope to see is also around economic models, so unlocking potential economic models for long-term platform sustainability, which is really important for us. So I think that's it from me. Sonic, is there anything that you wanted to add to close?
No, thanks, that's all.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh yeah, maybe one thing. Again, thank you for the DICE Network for awarding us and making it able for us to do this study. That's really interesting. Thanks a lot.
That's great. Thanks ever so much, Sonic and Rachel. It's really fantastic to see the really diverse range of stakeholders that you've already engaged in this, and particularly clear to see kind of the outcome and the impact that you hope to achieve, which is really commendable for such a kind of short-term feasibility study. So yeah, really excited to see the outcomes and the insights that you generate. So if you have any questions, please do pop them into the chat, and we're going to move straight on to our next presentation, and then we're going to do Q&A all together at the end. So really delighted to welcome our second project presented by Vijay and Colin.
Hi everyone, and thank you for allowing us to kind of present our work. I'm Vijay Pawar. I'm an associate professor at UCL. I've got a background in robotics and AI with a specific focus on applying these technologies within construction. And I'm joined by Colin Rose, who's also at UCL. He's got a strong expertise in circular construction and sustainable use of materials. And this project in particular is around how we're exploring the use of robotics to support more trusted and scalable approaches for timber reuse. So thinking around how we can use these digital approaches to reduce waste, carbon, while supporting the sector's transition to more circular practices. So in this talk, I'll try and I think we'll try and split it to give Collins an opportunity to talk about the problem, and then can talk about also about how we're approaching the problem and why it matters in the future. So I'll hand over to Colin.
Right, thank you. Yeah, so the UK produces vast amounts of timber waste, most of which ends up in waste management, and the majority of that goes into incineration. So carbon storing material where the carbon is emitted back into the atmosphere. So the potential to reuse it structurally is the best option for locking that carbon up for the long term, as well as timber being a naturally renewable material. Because of that, there's growing demand for timber, met by primary production, but that puts extra pressure on forestry, and for the UK, extra pressure on imports, because we don't have much in the way of forestry for construction or timber production. So by trying to reuse the materials that are already in our building stock, we increase UK resilience to price fluctuations, as well as reducing the strain on forests. But the reason that we can't do that at the moment isn't so much about the material itself. We think it's more about the confidence that people have in the material and the ability to grade it, strength grade it in the way that we do for primary timber. So the project is really about trying to fill in some of that understanding of when we get feedstock, like the stuff stacked up behind me, understanding how it's likely to perform, how best to put it back into use.
So so thanks, Colin. So you kind of heard about there's a problem, and it isn't necessarily the lack of material. It's more really focusing on the lack of trusted information about the material that allows us to reuse. And so at a high level, and kind of there's a picture of us on the left getting our hands dirty with new material to sort of sense and play around with. And so it's leveraging all the technology that we have at UCL, robots, sensors, etc., to try out different workflows that helps us build this layer of trust in a usable way for industry partners. And a lot of this work is being carried out at our new facility at UCL here East, based on the Olympic Park, and through the facilities that we have here, we're aiming to showcase different workflows, set up different demonstrator events, and to partly get early feedback on what works, what doesn't work, where this could add value, but then also think around the market barriers to adoption. So first, we're naturally going to be trying to sort of capture what are the real requirements, and that primarily would be around how we sense timber, how that can be used and then stored digitally in a way that can be used for reuse. And ultimately, we want to end with well, sort of opening up more data sets for the community to use. And I guess one of the things that we've realized is the lack of information or the lack of publicly organized data sets is a real barrier for people to sort of try out new AI systems, new AI workflows, and see what works. So hopefully, through this project, we'll be able to sort of end with a set of open source tools that enables wider participation and a conversation around how we can adopt these systems going forward. And we're supported by a set of our researchers here in the lab. Naturally, you know, we're trying to be forward-facing and very keen to get your opinions, both on the science side and industry side, and in general, we sort of run a sort of open door policy at HERES to sort of see our technology, and we kind of welcome sort of contributions from others to sort of participate. So if you are interested in some of the outcomes from this work, please don't hesitate to sort of contact, and I'm sure we can include your feedback in our work going forward. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks so much, Vijay and Colin. Again, another really, really exciting feasibility study in a completely different area, sector, context, and also really exciting to see that you're bringing together multiple technologies to enable circularity. And I think that's a really interesting part of the network that we're exploring is, you know, there's no sort of silver bullet, oh, okay, it's, you know, AI is the answer to everything. It is actually looking at how different technologies for different business models or at different stages of the value chain can unlock that ability to move towards circular. So yeah, great to see, and excited to see what you find out. So now we're going to move on to the third presentation, and I'm going to hand over to Jay and Dimitrios.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. And yeah, I went ahead of myself there. So thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. We're joining you from very rainy and windy Belfast today. I'm Dr. Dimitrios Papas, and along with my colleague, Dr. Jaylin, we are presenting our feasibility study called Busloads of Value. So what is it that we're looking at? We are looking at circular, digitally enabled business models, specifically designed for retrofitted bus fleets. So our work is supported by the DICE Plus network, to which we are very thankful for enabling us to materialize our proposal, and is conducted in partnership with RightBus. So our goal is to show not just why circularity matters, but how can we create the actual contractual tools to make it happen. So let's start by having said that with the problem that we are solving. On the right, we want to represent the tension that we are all very familiar with, and that is that there is a massive push for decarbonization, and rightfully so, which drives the skyrocketing demand for batteries. But this demand clashes with critical mineral risks and supply chain vulnerabilities, especially in the world that we are now finding ourselves in the past few days. So here's the specific gap we are addressing. A UK bus is an asset that lasts about 17 years. However, the battery inside it will degrade much faster than that. So we know that EU regulations will make battery passports mandatory by 2027. But right now, local authorities and operators lack the practical tools to manage that midlife transition. So they don't have the data governance to treat these batteries as strategic assets. This creates a governance gap. We have the technology to retrofit, but not the contracts to manage the materials. So why are we doing this in Northern Ireland? We view Northern Ireland as the ideal test bed for the challenge that is mentioned. So we have a compact, connected ecosystem with a strong engineering base. including our partner, which is RightPass, at a stone's throw, I would say, in Ballymena. So our focus is on retrofit, taking a mid-life diesel bus and converting it to electric offers what? It offers a faster, cheaper route to decarbonization than buying new. By proving how data flows and contracts work in this controlled ecosystem, we can generate a blueprint that is scalable to municipal fleets across the UK. If we can solve the data governance here, we can solve it for Manchester, Birmingham, and other parts of the UK, London, and so on. So here's our plan of attack. This is a 6-month feasibility study broken into 3 work packages. So work package 1 is about the evidence. This is running now. We are designing the minimal viable battery passport, identifying exactly what data we need and no more. Work package 2 moves from data to business. So we are co-developing business model archetypes and running viability checks to see if the actions stack up. And work package 3 is where we deliver the contract-ready blueprint. So we are taking our findings and translating them into legal clauses that procurement teams can actually use. We have a strict timeline with clear gates to ensure that we stay on track when it comes to it. So our first major innovation is the minimal viable battery passport. There is a lot of noise in the industry about passports right now, and often a risk of collecting data just because we can. Our principle, however, is simple. We only collect fields that change a decision to make it lean, nice, and tidy. So we focus on core attributes: a unique ID, state of health snapshots, custody logs, chemistry, simple and lean. So we are designing this to be interoperable and non-proprietary. The goal is a system that supports decision-making, like warranty triggers or safety thresholds, without burdening the operator with expensive bespoke IT systems. And the second innovation is moving from theory to practice. So we are using the triple-layered business model canvas as the model, not just as an analytical tool, but as a contract design tool. And this is to develop 2 distinct archetypes. First is resource security, focusing on end of life. And the second one is circular local value, which is to keep the value local and not lost from the system. So we are translating these concepts into specific contract clauses. So crucially, this isn't just a desk-based study. We are partnering with RightPass, who are contributing significant in-kind senior engineering time. And we will be running engineering clinics to stress test our assumptions. So we are taking real anonymized duty cycles from buses on the road today to answer practical questions, such as at what state of health is a battery actually viable for a second life? Or is the data burden practical for a busy mechanic in a depot and taking it to the real world? And this ensures also our blueprint is grounded in operational reality. And what are we going to deliver by the end of those 6 months? First is a feasibility note, and this will include a decision grade sensitivity analysis. Then there is a passport schema. So often we will be using open formats such as JSON and CSV that operators can adopt immediately. And third is the contract blueprint, which is a library of clauses that local authorities can lift and drop into their procurement tenders. This is the aspiration and the big target. So those are also tangible tools designed for immediate adoption. And when it comes to last but certainly not least, we are also deeply committed to responsible innovation. So we are using the AREA framework, which is Anticipate, Reflect, Engage, and Act, as circular business models can sometimes shift burdens onto vulnerable users or the workforce. So we are anticipating these risks, and we are acting to act for consumer protection and accessible redress. So this is pretty much it. I hope I'm not way over time, and thank you so much.
That's great. Thanks ever so much, Dimitrios. Another fantastic presentation and project. Again, looking at a completely different area and really interesting that you're bringing in, as well as kind of the more sort of physical technology, the technology associated with things like contracts and data sharing, which is all so important to enable these circular systems, but often really overlooked and understudied. So yeah, really, really excited to see your progress. So we've now got a few minutes for Q&A about the studies. Please do either raise your hand and I will come to you, or if you want to pop your question in the chat. I just had a first question to kick us off, and it was really for all of the studies. Obviously, the purpose of the DICE network is to bring together the sort of digital technology as a key enabler for circularity. And I just wondered how important the role of digital technologies is, not only as part of your study, but also the wider sector in which you're operating in. And what do you hope that digital will kind of unlock that has previously not been possible? That's a question to anyone.
I might start out. For food, I would say it's an area where it's very difficult to put, when you talk on the blue side of the butterfly, it's very easy to put IoT because you've got things, it's more tangible, whereas food, something we eat, something that gets, you could say, we meet the day of non-use, or it goes out of being edible very, very fast. So how to create a system also for both capturing something that goes out of date fast, but also into an existing system that already is optimized extremely much. So here the retail sector, where we see a lot of food loss going on, the business models is really, really strong, embedded, optimized throughout many, many years. So how technologies can create an alternative that might be more what's called more engaging, something that they would like to move into to replace their highly optimized way of creating business today, that leads to a lot of loss that from a normative perspective seems ridiculous, but within their business models it's accounted for. So how can we use technologies to do that? I think that's an important thing.
Great, Sonic. Yeah, really important and really interesting kind of that interplay between the biological side and the technological, and obviously unable to kind of put a product passport, so to speak, on an apple, but actually it's how you amalgamate all of the data and the business intelligence that you have to enable that kind of circularity and identification of surplus. Thank you. Colin.
Yeah, I'd say from a construction perspective, one of the use cases that we've been working on with salvaging timber is using it as feedstock to manufacture mass timber. So cross-laminated timber and glulam, large structural components that are normally made from primary wood in Europe or elsewhere. And doing that at the sort of trying to do the process of recovering the wood, understanding its potential qualities, denailing, machining, all within the sort of scope of viability to get anywhere near the cost of primary production is very difficult. And of course, we're only at the early stages of that, so we're faced with doing pilot projects rather than continuous production. But I think the part of the reason I'm excited about this project is we're starting to put in place some of those stepping stones to find our way to a digitally powered version of that production process. Lots more work to be done, but I think this is a really promising beginning.
Brilliant. Thanks, Colin. Yeah, really interesting. Jay.
Thank you. I would like to talk about the automotive industry as well, like especially when it covers with the entire battery supply chain. So when internal combustion engine vehicles were very popular, digital probably was not a thing, partially because the battery inside the internal IEC engine vehicles is probably too small for providing the capability of storing a lot of data for the vehicles. But with electric vehicles, the enlarged size of the batteries enable the use of more sensors and more devices to store a lot of data in the electric vehicles and make the connection over the cloud possible. In the meantime, speaking about the battery supply chain, we have a lot of data flowing between battery manufacturer and automakers, and then also between automakers and the end users of the electric vehicles, and then finally between the end users, automakers, and also the companies that will subcontract to recycle the batteries or to deal with the batteries. So there are a lot of like flow between different parties, and digital technology will enable a smoother or more transparent data flow between parties that will make our entire supply chain more circular.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Jay. Another really good example, and that kind of, again, aspect of the data side being so important, but then combined with the practical technologies to make it happen. Great. I think there's one question in the chat, probably for you, Colin or VJ. So this is to do with timber recycling. Will you use recycled timber for reinforcing concrete too?
Probably more of a materials thing for Colin, so I'll pass it on to him.
I haven't come across that idea. What, instead of rebar? Is that something that's already happening with primary timber?
Mohammed, do you want to come in to elaborate?
Safe to say it's not on the top of our agenda. There are researchers at UCL looking at the combination of concrete and CLT, or other sort of bio and mineral based combinations. I think we have quite a lot on our plate to just deal with the challenges of timber in the first instance. So we're, in the scope of this feasibility study, looking at how much we can glean in terms of understanding much better than we do at the moment what the sort of nature of that secondary timber's performance is, how we can best understand it, and that's likely to lead to lots of different future use cases.
Great, thanks, Colin. And yeah, I think this is kind of one of the lovely things about feasibility studies, in that we, deliberately called for studies that were more exploratory and perhaps were kind of, earlier ideas than something that you might get funded through a kind of more traditional EPSRC full grant. And actually then you don't know what you're going to uncover, and hopefully it will lead to lots of unexpected opportunities and collaborations. So maybe this is one of them. We've got another question from Madeline. All three sectors are highly regulated. How are you considering the regulatory barriers to implementation and how to overcome them? Great question, Madeline. Sonic.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Madeline. I was actually reading into all these regulations Friday, so it should be quite top of mind with me. We do have the food waste hierarchy here in the UK, where it actually says either you should go for the guidance side, would we prevent, redistribute animal food, or some bio-extraction, so bioeconomy. So our idea is actually to facilitate for this that is not regulated by law, whereas AD, anaerobic digestion, incineration, landfill, and spreading on the fields is kind of regulated by law. So food producers, they must do either of the first four they can do. So that's part of it. Of course, there's hygiene, the safety, all these regulations is, you could consider them barriers. You could also consider them as way of keeping us healthy and not getting contaminated as human beings if we want to eat it. So of course we can't get around something that is unhealthy, something that is not safe to eat, cannot go for redistribution in our project, meaning we need to capture it before. I think maybe that's one of the issues of the systems right now, since this is moving fast and fresh produce do get non-edible very fast. We need a system that can enable the connection between demand and supply at a much faster pace at a lower transaction cost, either it will go for animal food or anaerobic digestion. And that is what we actually is proposing, to create the system and thereby fit into the regulatory system, because we can't change that. Of course, we can highlight here might be a barrier that could be lowered as long as it doesn't interfere with safety and health. That is, of course, a given. We should not do anything towards that. I think maybe, Rachel, do you have anything extra?
No, I think that's exactly right. You're absolutely right, Madeline. The sector is highly regulated, and rightly so. And there's a huge number of different laws, particularly in the context of redistribution, that do pose a challenge, like Natasha's law, for example, being one of them. But as Sonic said, like this isn't about changing the laws or overcoming them in any way. It's about working within them, and that's the regulatory landscape is something really important to take into account in the feasibility study, because it's a key part of what is feasible or what isn't.
Great, thank you, Vijay.
Yeah, I think from our point of view, obviously we're thinking about it from the data side and how this can inform more objective decisions and therefore inform more standards, etc. So, I think let's go again, examples of kind of where you kind of need the input from all these different perspectives. And I guess from our side, we're kind of working with end users as well as insurers, etc., to understand what those requirements are in terms of understanding how they can leverage data, essentially, to then aid with these sort of issues, because there's no point creating these regulations in isolation when we've got technologies that can really help with the process.
Great, thank you. Jay, do you want to come in?
Yeah. Hi, I think for our application, the regulation comes on both sides. On the first side, I think it's an encouragement for us to start with this project, because of the enforcement from the EU, where the batteries supplied to the automotive industry need to have a digital passport, so that the manufacturers and the users will be able to know what type of batteries they are using and like the information of the battery. So basically, this is something some good policy that encourage us to develop that digital passport. In the meantime, we are also subject to some other laws like user privacy, and we are committed to protecting the IP from different parties, especially from battery manufacturers. They probably want to have some certain protection on the formulation of their electrolyte, for example, or the particular battery material, electro material they use for manufacturing their batteries. So we are trying to identify the minimum digital passport that contains the minimum level of complexity that can be transparent between different parties.
Yeah, great, thank you. Some really key points raised there. Diego, have a question.
Yeah, thank you, Fiona. I'm the Research and Impact Fellow for the DICE Network, for those that don't know me. I was these are really, really interesting projects. And coming back to that presentation where Fiona mentioned about the embedding circularity and sustainability within the platforms. Is this something, I know you hinted to it in some of your presentations, but is this something, both the environmental and social impact, just like Dimitrius's presentation showed, have you integrated this into your project? Just because this is something that I get asked sometimes when we're talking to business or policy partners and saying like, well, is your solution actually creating more of a problem than actually what you're trying to solve? How does this create? And also there's a follow-up question in terms of like data sharing, because we've seen data fragmentation as one of the main areas that to build digital circularity. How are you addressing this? I know you mentioned like this kind of smart contracts or like open source platforms, or hinted to it. Are you considering this within your projects? These are the two questions I have.
Anyone want to go first?
No, I can start again, but if just for the last one, Diego, data sharing, for sure, we would take as a default, it should be open source. So here, that would overcome data sharing. Part of the feasibility study is trying to figure out or understand actors or people in this ecosystem that is fragmented out willingness to share data. So that is on our, you could say, as Rachel mentioned, trust thing. How can we engage and get people into the loop by understanding them better in what kind of data are they willing to share, and that then can make this feasible. And is that a problem or is it not? We don't know yet, but for sure it's something we need to address. The technology itself should be open source so it can be distributed out to other urban areas. Thereby, we should be able to claim scalability in time. The other one, rebound effects, is maybe what you're hinting to here, that if you create something, and for sure that is relevant, but I do also believe that if we think about, first of all, there's a huge loss created now. So there's big loss in the linear economy. So by saying just because we go circular, we have a bigger loss, I would say often it's because you keep staying in the linear economy and call it circular economy. But if we can really move into circular economy, in theory, we should have less rebound effect. Of course, that's also what we hope for. But with 410,000 tons lost in London alone and 6.4 billion tons in the UK, I think we've got plenty of food that can be redistributed, captured, and put into value, where we already used a lot of energy, logistics, and so on, creating a lot of emissions that, all else equal, will be minimized if we understand how to create such a system. But it's a relevant question to answer, because we should, of course, avoid rebound effects from a new technological solution. That is for sure a thing.
Great, thanks, Sonic. We are running out of time, so I want to just leave time for Georgie to give information on the next round of funding. But are there any final comments from either of the other two projects in response to that question?
Yeah, I mean, just quickly from our side, I think, you're seeing so much innovation, especially in the AI space. And it really, by thinking about how we can structure our data sets and give people access to, to sort of think about, okay, let's think about timber, let's think about some other materials, we can at least get that engagement and participate in that progress. So I guess this is kind of examples of how we could just widen our participation and jump on the bandwagon in innovation a bit more quickly.
Right. Thanks, BJ.
And from me, so as an apostrophe, and very, very quickly, it has been one of the things that were pestering us in the creation of this project. When we think sustainability, it is very easy to communicate value creation across when we are discussing batteries. In the economic space, there is value there for the companies involved. In the environmental space, there is value there for the parties involved when we recycle batteries. And the key there is to unlocking the social value. So we are seeing the social value as an extension of the social development that occurs from that economic benefit, from that environmental benefit, from establishing processes of end of life, and also the improvement, the development in spaces such as social culture. How do they see battery recycling in terms of how friendly a society can be towards battery recycling in their backyard, let's say? What does this create? What are the opportunities created, the jobs created, and so on, governance changes that this brings over. And in terms of data sharing, that is central in the sense of open source is key to scaling up the project. If municipalities, councils have access to that approach in terms of procurement, this is music to our ears. It's key to what we want to offer.
Great, thank you. And Sonic, very
shortly, but just to answer your own question in the chat, how do you ensure that your proposal stood out against the other 40 plus proposals that we received? Honestly, Fiona, I think you're the best to answer that, because we don't know about the 38 other projects that was handed into you. So we don't know why we stood out. But I think if you look at least ours, the other two also, we have a civic problem and connection to industry. That was also feedback that you gave to us. But you are the best to answer that question yourself, or the board that kind of assessed us.
Thank you. Yes, yeah, you're quite right. And actually, so George is going to go on now to explain the next call for funding, and we will share as part of that process kind of insights into what makes a good feasibility study and what makes it stand out. But if you have any other comments, any of the other teams, please do feel free to share those in the chat, because I think that will be very useful for anyone thinking about applying. Georgie, over to you.
Yeah, just getting the slides up. Thank you, everyone. It's such interesting discussion. I'm literally just going to take a couple of minutes, like Fiona mentioned, just to talk about round B of funding opportunities, and just to frame it really, to recap the position. Like our flexible funds, we do see this as an opportunity to undertake some quite speculative and potentially high impact research to accelerate innovative solutions. And I guess when I reflect back at the beginning of the network, when we were talking about our flexible funds, there was real energy from the network team that actually, while these pots of up to 50,000 for each of these projects are sometimes in sort of digital innovation not significant, they do provide that opportunity to really just seed the way where we can then open doors and sort of hopefully access larger sums of funding moving forward. Particularly as a network, just to repeat there, we're really focused on supporting early careers researchers and also interdisciplinary collaboration with industry and policy partners. So those, I think perhaps when we're talking about what makes a successful application, those are two criteria that do score really highly from our side. And just to give a snapshot, so this is quite a detailed graph, but anyway, a snapshot of the funds left to distribute. We've got just over, we've got around 270,000 left to distribute. And if we work across that, our knowledge exchange placements, like Fiona said, we've got 2 that have been funded. Another 4 are now in contracting. We have funds for around another 6. So we're really welcoming applications there. That's a rolling application, and we review those on a quarterly basis. So the next review cutoff is the 9th of March. There will then be probably one more after that, and we would expect to have kind of used up all the funds at that point. The big launch that we've got, which is coming next week on the 28th of January, is for our next round of feasibility studies and the 2 demonstrator calls. So we're looking to fund another, sorry, apologies, it's not 4, it's 3 more feasibility studies and 2 demonstrator calls. So we'll be launching much more detail with our webinar next week, and the application deadline for that is the 27th of April. So at this point, I'd recommend that you join our webinar. I'm hoping that Kate might be able to just drop the link to that in the chat. So we'll be running that next week at 4 p.m. on the 28th of January. And we'll be sharing much more information there. And the key thing we will be running this time as well is a sandpit event, because we're so aware of this industry collaboration. And through our first funding call for feasibility studies, we did a kind of networking and a sort of almost a matchmaking where we're inviting academics to provide us with their areas of interest. We were then inviting our industry and policy partners and third sector partners to share with their challenges with us, and we were trying to do a sort of offline match, which worked well in a number of cases. This time we're going to run a sandpit event on the 10th of March, and we've got specific challenge areas that as a network we'd like to focus on. So we'll probably have 4 or 5 specific areas of focus. We will bring a select group of our industry partners around each of those challenge areas to that sandpit event to provide a kind of overview of their position and their challenges they're facing, and then use a facilitated day to be able to explore potential feasibility studies or demonstrators that could be developed in collaboration between academic partners that join us and those industry partners. So there will be an application process for that. We'll be sharing more at our launch webinar next week. So I would encourage you to sign up, and the expressions of interest will then open on the 28th as well. So I think from my side, that's everything. I don't know if anyone's got any questions around this next funding round. Just a comment in the chat. Oh, that's around social value. Okay. So yeah, on to any other business, I think, Fiona.
Great. Yep. I think that I don't think there's any questions, but I think the webinar and also details on our website should answer most of those that you have. Yeah, please do keep in touch with the network and help us to continue to build it. We have a particularly active ECR network and community within the DICE network. So if you want to get involved in that, please do connect with us through the link that Kate's just provided in the chat. Connect with us on LinkedIn and stay up to date with our newsletter. We're running all sorts of webinars and events, and we are planning for our next showcase that's taking place later this year. So look forward to engaging with you further. But thank you so much to all three of our projects. Really excited that they're now started, and looking forward to running this webinar or seeing them at our showcase to see what they come up with. And thank you as always to Georgie and Kate for doing such a great job at organising this event. So lovely to see you all. Have a nice evening and look forward to engaging with you again soon. Bye bye.
Thank you so much.
Brilliant.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.